Welcome back to the JoinTheTrades.com interview series where we talk to tradespeople and learn more about successful career paths straight from the source. Today, our guest is Bryan Thomas. Bryan Thomas is a journeyman lineman with 19 years of experience in the trade. Bryan, tell us how you got started.
Well, went to college right out of high school. Um, Found out that wasn't really the path I wanted to go on. Um,
Sure.
my my dad worked for the utility company as an electrical engineer, and like prior to, I didn't think anything about his job prior to this. Like he worked, whatever. But after finding out college wasn't really the route I wanted to go, he was like, "Well, look, you can come work on the line crew." And I'm sure he helped me get into the apprenticeship, like word of mouth, whatever. But started the apprenticeship when I was 21,
Okay.
and um, yeah, it's been pretty good. Just, it, I mean, there's multiple ways to get into it
Sure.
to get into this kind of stuff. I mean, I had a leg up just because my dad worked for the utility, and
Okay.
like
So,
that helped me out. But
sure. Were you working directly under your father? Was he actually a mentor to
no,
you at that point?
no,
Okay.
not at all. Not at all. He worked in a completely different department. It had like I didn't see him at work. Like we worked for the same company for several years. I don't work for that company anymore, but
Okay.
we worked for the same company for several years. I never saw him at work. Never.
Okay, so your dad just played a small part, maybe
He's
just
yes,
putting in a good
put
word.
exactly put in a good word more than likely, and and I don't even know for a fact that that happened. Just my
Okay,
assumptions. But
all right. So he gets you in the door, maybe, or maybe not. A little good word here or there, and then how does it progress from there? Is there someone that takes you under their wing?
so it was a 4 year apprenticeship. Um, which is one of the coolest things about working in a skilled trade position is the entire time you're learning how to do this job and progress, you're getting paid for it. So you've got a four
Right.
year a 4 year apprenticeship. You're employed. You're getting paid the entire time. Like there's schooling involved. You go to classes. Most of it's on the job training, but I mean, you do go to classes, learn electrical theory, learn certain things. It's it's pretty cool. It's a fun job if you like being outside and
Yeah.
like, but and multiple people like that you work with through the time. There's a couple of guys, um, older guys that kind of took me under their wing and taught me a lot when I was younger, and just took
Yeah.
the time to really, really teach me things and not just like brush you aside and whatnot. Like a huge part of it too. It's just being willing to train younger guys coming in.
Yeah, sure. Having a mentor can be incredibly helpful, right? So you bring up a great point that people will probably like to hear. Many people watching might not even be aware of the fact that there's earn to learn, right?
Oh
Ultimately, you're
yeah,
getting paid at that point to learn your trade, and then you're ready to roll.
absolutely. And I mean nowadays, and this wasn't as much when I started, but nowadays they've got lineman colleges that you can go to, and that kind of gives you a little bit of a step up to get into an apprenticeship.
Hmm.
And like any other degree or whatever, that's not necessarily like it's not necessary though. You can still get into apprenticeship, get a groundman position, and start like you were saying, earning while learning.
Yeah.
Still employed, you're getting paid and learning all this stuff that you'll need later on to try to progress.
Yeah, that's great information. Give us an idea about you start as when you first start. This is like you said about 20 years ago, right? You're called an apprentice at that point.
So when I started, I was an apprentice.
Okay.
You can start in this trade as a groundman. Um, I started as an apprentice. I was an apprentice for 4 years until I journeyed out and became a journeyman. Um, Something else about this, there's so many different avenues once you top out working transmission, distribution, substation, whatever you want to do. Like you can work anywhere in the country. I could quit my job tomorrow and have one somewhere else. Like it's just it, the avenues are endless, honestly. Like wherever you want to
Right.
live, wherever you want to work.
Right. So the skills that you acquire through the process of becoming a journeyman are basically lead to all kinds of opportunities.
Absolutely. I I did my apprenticeship, worked in Georgia for 14 years. So the apprenticeship plus however many years, 10 years after that, quit. I work in California now. Like,
Nice. Nice. All right, so walk us through. Let's go back in time to the beginning, more or less, when you're at
yeah,
the apprentice stage, and kind of walk us through what a day would be like for you at that point.
you get treated like crap. Like in all honesty, it's 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 changed a little bit, just
Yeah,
as society has changed from when I went through the apprenticeship. But you're treated like dirt. You do all the stuff nobody else wants to do. Um,
sure.
it, but at the same time, you're learning. And if you screw up, you're gonna get yelled at. Um, the better you do, the less you get yelled at. But it it's still like I never felt like I was talked down to, or like I don't know. It's a learning process. It's just going
Sure.
through all of it.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I imagine it's like being, when you're on a sports team or, and you're in a fraternity or whatever, right? There's some hazing that goes on,
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
right? And that's just kind of part of the experience. It's kind of, I imagine I worked with a team full of guys who rode horses for a long time, and the guys that have been there for a while, they kind of haze the younger guys a little bit. It's first of all, it's a bonding thing on some level, but it's also a way of vetting out, right, whether someone's going to make it.
100%. And there's a lot of that. Like in this line of work, they don't want somebody to just kind of squeak through because there's a lot of dangers that go with it. You don't want to see somebody getting hurt, getting killed, whatnot. You'd rather
Sure.
like weed those guys out, like that you think that might be an issue before it gets to that level for sure.
Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. All right, so then you go through the process of becoming a journeyman, and how does a day change at that point?
You have a lot more responsibility at that point. You're an apprentice, you're told what to do, like for the most part. You top out, the next day you could be taking an apprentice out, doing a job yourself. You're in charge. Like anything screws up, it's on you. There's a ton of responsibility that comes with that. A ton of responsibility goes into training the guys that are coming up under you. It could just you're putting your hands on 14,000 volts every day,
Sure.
and it's it's intense sometimes.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I mean, you're responsible at that point. Also, if you have apprentice, you're clearly responsible for their safety, right?
Oh,
So you
100%,
got, yeah,
100% you are. So not only responsible for the work itself, but responsible for everybody's safety that's working under you. And
yeah, yeah. So well, that's probably a good time to talk about then the pros and the cons. I mean, you've been in the field for a long time. You've got to be aware of all the ins and outs. What are the pros and cons?
pros, it pays really well. It's
It's a big one.
it it. I mean, it is. It's provided a very good life for myself and my family. Um, Cons, it's dangerous. Like there are inherent dangers. Like you have to deal with every day. You mitigate all those hazards like throughout the day with PPE, rules in place, all that, it's still inherently dangerous. I mean, you're putting your hands on live electrical wires every day.
Sure, and you feel that certainly the training that you receive in the process of becoming a journeyman prepares you for that. By
No,
that time, you're
absolutely.
comfortable with the dangers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It does. You get comfortable with it. You know, as long as you follow the rules you're supposed to follow the procedures, use your protective equipment, you're okay. And all that training you get during the apprenticeship, and not just during the apprenticeship, but even afterwards, you learn so much. You talk to any lineman that thinks they know it all, they're an idiot. Like, you're never going to know it all. Never.
Right. Yeah, and then you bring up another good point. You hate to just fixate on how lucrative the field is, but obviously you mentioned that you've done very well over the time, and I imagine talk to us about how that progresses because over 20 years, I imagine that you've seen it go from one standard of living to another. Very
Oh,
obviously.
100%. And that depends on region of the country you're living in, what the scale is in that area. It's not the same across the board. Like, pay varies depending on cost of living in the area you're in.
Uh huh.
But
Yeah. That
regardless, you're still doing pretty well in what area you're in.
okay. Yeah. Well, you bring up the point that you started in Georgia, and obviously, I
Mm-hmm.
imagine the cost of living in Georgia is substantially less than the cost of living in California, for instance, where you are now. If I'm,
No,
am I
absolutely.
correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
However, that
And
does seem to get balanced out by your salary.
100% it does. Yep. It's anywhere in the country you're making six figures. Like,
Okay. No, that's a nice round number to just put out there and have people know. Six
yeah.
figures is a nice standard of living.
No, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, who do you think would be suited for this? Like, what kind of person, what kind of individual would really excel here?
Anybody that likes being outdoors, um, doesn't mind being outdoors in any type of weather because, like, you're going to be outdoors in great weather. You're going to be outdoors in the crappiest weather you could think of. Like,
Right.
whether it's snow, rain, whatever. It doesn't matter. If the lights go out, you have to go to work and repair whatever happened to get the lights back on. Um, I think that's a big thing. It's just enjoying being outside, not minding being outside when it's pouring down rain and everybody else is inside warm and you're not. It's because you're not going to be. Um, you can't be afraid of heights.
Okay.
That's a huge thing. Like, the heights can't bother you at all because I say all of our work, it's not all there, it's underground and whatnot, but a lot of our work is pretty high. I'm, I've hung by a rope under a helicopter. Like, there's,
That's pretty
it's,
cool.
yeah, it is the first like few times. And then after that, it's like, oh, all right, whatever. But
It's like anything else. I mean, you get used to
it
it,
is.
right?
Anything else, you do it enough and you get used to it. And it's like, oh, all right, well,
Okay, that's awesome. Um, well, that's cool. So, any other attributes that someone would have that would tell them, "Hey, this is really something to consider"?
I don't know. There's most people in this trade have a pretty strong personality.
Yep.
You've got to be able to deal with, but you got to deal with a bunch of butt heads all the time. Like, it's like it's a bunch of type A personality guys just
Yeah.
constantly at each other, and you spend more time with the guys at work than you spend with your family a lot of the
Right.
times. I mean, you just the nature of the job. You're at work a lot, and you've got to either learn to get along with them or learn to deal with them so you're not killing each other. Like, It's just
Yeah, you got to have some people skills, huh?
you definitely have to have people skills, and like even just like with the job I have right now, I deal with customers daily. So I'm the position I'm in now. I'm a first responder to power outages. So you call in, your lights are blinking, whatever. I'll go to your house, try to figure it out. So you deal with customers on a daily basis in this position. That's not always the case. I've worked jobs where I never saw anybody outside of just our work group. Worked in the middle of nowhere, working on transmission towers, and but you do have to have some of that. Like, you got to have a little bit of people skills.
I imagine that's different sometimes, depending on whether you're working commercial or residential. Do you normally work residential, commercial, or both? Or?
Both. So I work for a utility. Um, so whether it's a residential customer or a commercial customer, if they call in and their power's out, I'm the first one that rolls out there to try to figure out why the power's out. And
Okay.
hopefully I can fix it. If I can't, I figure out what the problem is and they call other guys in. So at this point in time, I work by myself. I don't work on a crew. Like, it's just me and dealing with customers. Uh,
Okay.
that's different than, I don't know. There's pros and cons to that too. Like, I missed the camaraderie, working on crews, working with the guys, doing that kind of stuff. But I don't have to deal with other guys' personalities anymore either. So it just depends. Like I said, there's so many different avenues in this trade that you can go on. It opens up a lot.
Right. That's that. From what you said, that's a nice part of it. That you can kind of once you're in, once you're established, once you know the basics. And correct me if I'm wrong. You can kind of then, depending on what like you said, what aspects of this gig you might like, or that gig you might like, or this gig you have enough to choose from. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. So you can go into, like I said, distribution, which is lower voltages, feeding homes, feeding businesses, or transmission, higher voltages, working on towers. There's just a lot of different avenues you can take. You find the one you like, and you can stick with that, make a career out of it.
Awesome, man. Well, if there's anyone out there that is interested in getting the ball rolling, how would you suggest at this point that they start? I mean, you've seen 20 years of people getting in the field. How would they go about that?
In my opinion, the best thing you can do is try to figure out the local union hall in your area. Like, there's a huge argument, like union, non-union, whatever. That's the best avenue you can take. Um, Contact your local union hall. Try to get on the groundman books. Get your foot in the door that way. You can look into lineman colleges that they're just they're ridiculously expensive, honestly, like way more than they should be. Um, but that's still another way that you can get into it. If you
So you
Go ahead.
so you would suggest just contacting your local union and finding out, how they would direct you from there?
100%. Contact them. Try to get on the groundman books. Get your foot in the door that way. You're still If you get a job as a groundman, you're still getting paid. You're working. You're learning. That helps you get into an apprenticeship. Like, the more you know prior to getting into an apprenticeship will help you. Or that's just going to give you a leg up, because you have to interview for the apprenticeship process, whether it's through outside construction, through the union, whether it's at a utility company. You're going to interview for it. There's going to be multiple people interviewing for it. That experience is just going to give you a leg up on those other people.
Well, that's definitely helpful. That gives someone a really good idea of in your opinion, and this is 20 years of experience, the best way to go ahead and get it rolling. Um, Thanks so much, brother. Before we leave, you want to plug your company, or would you
No,
wait
no,
till?
no, no. No, I'm
Okay,
good with
no
that.
need for that.
No need for that. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you and just like try if I helped one person like think, oh shit, this looks cool, like it's good enough for me, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's why we've been so fortunate to have decent people like yourself who are willing to donate their time to talk to people, because I think that this is something that not only young people, people looking to change fields in general, having someone who's an expert who's been doing it for a long time, give them some actual information, some feedback about the field really helps. So we can't thank you enough, and I appreciate you being here, brother.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Catch you next time. Check out jointhetrades.com.